Hey everyone, so I'm gonna talk about the third job skill, Blason, mainly because it's a pretty underrated skill. It is situational, but in the situation you would use it in, it's pretty useful. And that's mainly due to how Phantom's Mark works. So if you don't really understand how the skill works, there's two ways you can activate it. The first way is if an enemy is marked or debuffed, and you have one thief mark or one stack, you can use the skill. The second way is if you have all 7 stacks but the debuff isn't applied, you can use the skill that way too. And the first way is kind of why Blason is useful, because one, you can flash jump with Blason, so you can just like flash jump in and use the skill, but it also automatically applies the debuff and gives you 1 stack after one use, compared to like Melee and Tempest where you have to land a certain number of hits, about that many, to apply the debuff, and Rift Break you have to land all the hits to apply the debuff and get a stack. So they're a lot slower compared to Blason. So there's only like 2 ways you would ever use this skill. The first way is, this one's more situational. It's like if you don't have the debuff applied and you don't have 7 stacks and you kind of really need the iframe, you can just like flash jump in and use Blason just so you can like have your iframe, but that's not as common since Phantom's a Hurricane class, and we're usually like on top of a boss and just like weaving in and out of attacks, and the debuff is more than likely always applied throughout like the entire fight. So that way is a little bit more like niche. The second situation you would ever use Blason is more common, and that's when you either enter a boss fight or during a phase change where you kind of want to get your burst off and everything, and this is really useful if you have an ROR as well. So I'm like 90% positive like after a phase change the debuff is removed, and you know, sometimes you don't always have all 7 stacks and you kind of really want to like get your burst off, especially like part 3 will where you have the poison on you. That's kind of where Blason is really good, because you know, you can like proc all your buffs. Use Blason, bind, Phantom's Mark, proc your ROR, and then do your burst, and then like do your entire rotation afterwards. Because doing Phantom's Mark and then proccing your ROR does the most amount of damage. So that's kind of why like Blason is pretty useful, especially like when entering a boss or like after a phase change and you just want to get your burst off. You want to just deal as much damage as possible. But yeah, like obviously like all those situations are very like situational, and the first one's more niche, but the second one is a lot more common and a lot more useful. So yeah, like I would say like, you know, use Blason just for that, but overall like, you know, the skill is still kind of like unused most of the time, but yeah, like that's kind of why I usually have Blason on.